All right. This is my second time trying to record this video because when I did the first one, it turns out that for some reason I didn't have this thing hooked up the right way and it didn't pick up any of my audio. So I talked for 10 minutes and nothing. So, without further ado, in 1989, I'm sorry, back up, 1998. See, now I'm going to mess up all this now because I'm having to go through it again. 1998, Tom Brokaw published a book called The Greatest Generation. Now, yesterday was the 79th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, thrusting America into World War II. So the origin of the phrase, the greatest generation, actually comes from the book that Tom Brokaw published in 98. And in this book, he actually talks about the characteristics that made the greatest generation. What was the greatest influencing factors of why we consider them the greatest generation. In his book, he covers 4 different things. He says that there was monumental changes going on at the time. That particular generation has an unbelievable work ethic. They were very, very frugal because of the Depression and everything that they had to go through for that. And there's this sense of sacrifice and honor for the best of what's best for the country. Now, it's that last one I want to touch on here in a little bit, what a lot of people are trying to argue about right now that we're lacking for the people that stand up against these tyrannical rules and things that are coming down. There was another article that was published by Family Search. If you go to familysearch.org and search the greatest generation characteristics, you'll come up with this list: personal responsibility, humility, work ethic, frugality, commitment, integrity, and self-sacrifice. So there's a lot of things that were at play that you can either describe how the greatest generation was really created, or because the greatest generation existed, what were their particular characteristics at the time. One talked more about why we consider them the greatest generation, as opposed to the other one that other list talking more about what were their particular characteristics because we call them the greatest generation. What really drives me crazy is that what was going on then versus what's going on now, and what I feel is one of the things that's lacking now. I have to talk about Crap News Network and an article that they published just probably about 3 weeks ago. They were talking about the reason that this video, the reason I'm putting this video up is because it's kind of a response to this article. In it, they're talking about the difference between our generation and why we're not really handling COVID very well versus why the greatest generation was able to handle World War II so well. In here, they say this generation of Americans has trouble with the concept of sacrifice. They refer to it as a sacrificial spirit, that people were all right sacrificing. Well, I think the whole world was okay sacrificing because of what the end goal was. The end goal for Hitler was the global domination and his vision for the one Aryan race. He's responsible for 6 million deaths. So, I mean, I think that's more of a motivator than a virus with a 99.9% or 99.8% survivability rate right now. But we'll get more into that here in a minute. Because during that time, in the world, if you just go to Wikipedia and type in 1940s sovereign nations, there were 106 sovereign nations. If you go to the National World War II Memorial website, National World War II Museum website, and you click on deaths by country and count the number of countries that were involved in the war, 40. So literally 40% of the world was in World War II. It's crazy. It's a crazy percentage. There are currently 195 sovereign nations. That's according to the UN. The latest was in 2011 with South Sudan. But now we're talking, okay, the entire world is engulfed with this virus. According to the World Health Organization, COVID deaths worldwide since the onset, 1.55 million. That's, once again, according to the World Health Organization. Also, according to the World Health Organization, The number one killer of people in the world is cardiovascular disease. It is estimated at 17.9 million people annually. That's an impressive number. Total deaths from World War II, 75 million over a span of 4 years. 75 million over a span of 4 years. It's about 500,000 people in the U.S. Most of them obviously the soldiers. So we're talking, and then once again, that's over a 4-year period. Cardiovascular deaths, 17.9 million annually, globally. Global COVID deaths since the beginning, 1.55. Now, I don't want to diminish death. I understand people are scared of it, and yes, any death that happens is regrettable. And while it may have been inevitable that that person was going to die because of underlying conditions, it sucks that COVID was kind of that last kick in the butt to end up killing that person. Yes, it sucks, and I'm sorry for everybody who's lost somebody because of COVID. I totally understand. But at the same time, society as a whole is throwing their arms up and saying, no more COVID deaths. Well, where are your arms being thrown up for heart disease? 17.9 million people annually. That's huge. That's massive. Why aren't you eating better? Why aren't you exercising more? Why don't you take multivitamins? If you're not doing those things, I recommend you do them for a whole lot of reasons. Because not only is it going to help you with the cardiovascular disease, it's also going to help you with COVID. Just generally, if you're in better health, the numbers exist. COVID is not a threat to you. COVID is not a threat. It is not the threat that they're making it out to be. I bring this up because there is a difference between the greatest generation and now. There is something very basic lacking within society right now that I think is probably one of the biggest genesis for a lot of issues that we have between citizens and government. Right now, we've got all over the U.S. There's all these different governors and localities and mayors, and there are people on the national Democratic side, that even on some on the Republican side, that are calling for further lockdowns and all this other crap. There's one thing that they lack. And I'll tell you, so for those of you that have been following Ohio Stands Up for a while, you know that this past weekend we had an event to kind of find out about what was going on with the lawsuit that's pending in the state of Ohio right now, as well as some other speakers that talked to us. So it was actually a really nice gathering, and I have to say that it was very interesting being there, and something happened that I really, really wasn't expecting. I'm not an emotional person by any means. There are some things I get very emotional about. When you talk about, when I talk about my time in the service and what it means to be a veteran, tears, waterfalls, because I'm so proud. I'm so proud of that. But the one thing that I never expected was that while I was standing in line to get some food at this gathering, meeting, protest, was that I looked around the room and I saw a bunch of people not wearing masks, and it felt normal. It felt normal. It was so weird, because I'm so used to that when I'm going out. There's 3 stores, maybe 4 stores I go to. I was going to the grocery store. I was going to Lowe's. Occasionally I'd go to Target. So I don't go to many places, but everywhere I go, people are wearing masks. I don't see anybody's face anymore. So when I went there and I was standing in line, I saw all these people without masks on, protesting and having dinner and just being alive. It was actually slightly emotional. I was like, wow, this is what it's like. So there's an emotional aspect of what's going on that people really don't realize. Because I didn't realize it. I mean, I don't want to say I'm a shut-in, but I don't do a lot. Even before COVID, I don't get out of the house a lot. I do what needs to be done. I exercise when I need to. I go, I get out of the house for what I need to, but I don't intentionally go out all the time. So when I went out and being able to see that again, it was so nice. Kind of put a little bit of a hope and spark back into what we're doing. So the reason I bring that up is because they were raising funds, obviously, for the lawsuit, and they were raffling off baskets. And in this basket, so I'm going to kind of go back in a circle here, that there's one thing missing from our generation, and not necessarily from citizens, but more so from the interaction between citizens and our elected officials. And I call them representatives and leaders. They are not our leaders, they are representatives. But this disconnect comes from a basket that I won from the drawings that they were doing. I am so glad I got a bunch of different books in it. And one of these things is called I, Pencil. It's a short essay written from the perspective of a pencil, talking about where the pencil came from. And there's one line in here, and I had to underline it. It's the only line that I've underlined it. Is that towards the end, this pencil is talking about how he came to be, and he talks about the invisible hand and all of the people and things working together to bring him into existence. Said that it is not possible without one essential ingredient for freedom, is that it's a faith in free people. Freedom is impossible without this faith. I believe that our representatives do not have faith in their fellow Americans. They don't, by any means. It's so rare to find. The ones that do, the ones that have faith, you could probably flip a coin, and it's getting more so that they have not served in the military. The percentage of representatives at most levels has just dropped rapidly because of the Greatest Generation dying off. It's estimated that in the U.S., the Greatest Generation actually only comprises about 300 to 380,000 Americans right now. That's a really small number. So if you know anybody from World War II, go talk to them, have a conversation, and hear their story, because we're losing it fast. So in there, in that article, in that essay where he talks about that you need to have this faith in free people. We don't have faith in our fellow Americans anymore. Our representatives obviously do not have faith in us at all. My biggest thing from the beginning is I don't care what side of the argument you are. I really don't care what side of any argument that you're on. The only thing I care about is individual choice. It really is the one thing that makes us the freest country in the world. Yes, there are plenty of other countries in the world that have freedom, but they do not experience freedom the way that we do. How do I know? Because I've been to over 30 of them from my time in the military. There is a crazy amount of freedom that we experience here in the U.S. that you will not find in any other country, hands down. And I will fight you to the death with that statement. I really would. It's really crazy to think that so many people have lost faith in their fellow man. And with it coming down to individual choice, I don't care what side of an argument you are on. The only thing I care about is that you have a choice. That's all I care about. You need to have a choice. Here's what I want from my representatives. I want my representatives to tell me the truth, unfiltered, unbiased, and let me make the choice. That's all I want. Because if they do that, I'm sorry, there's one more thing I want. I want for them to give me the truth, unbiased, unfiltered, and then I want them to have faith in us to make the right choice. That's best for us. That's all it comes down to. They represent us. They don't lead us. We are their leaders, not the other way around. And more people need to start referring to them as representatives and not leaders. Don't talk about them as our leaders, because they're not. We elect them. Now, granted, there's a lot of people out there that are not doing their job and not voting, or they are voting, but they're being uninformed voters, and they're voting for really bad policies, really bad people to come in to institute bad policies. But it all comes down to individual choice. I just want everyone here to have that. I miss seeing when I was at this protest the other day, this gathering the other day with the Ohio Stands Up group. I looked in the room, and I'd say about 2/3 of them were female, only 1/3 of them male. And I bring that up because a while back, just a couple days ago, I posted a video, my speech to Americans, calling men to stand up, and it was proven to me again that I don't know where the men are. I don't know where the men are standing up. I see them, but the women are taking on this fight, and I don't. It's sad. It's really, really sad. I don't know what's going on, and it's really disheartening. So that's why I'm going to continue making these videos. You guys need motivation, and I'm going to do my best to provide it to you, along with some great information in the process. But really what it comes down to is we need people to stand up. We need the men to stand up and take part in this and take more of an active role in leading our families and leading our country. I don't know where the next generation is. I would love to see another greatest generation, because the one that we have now is dying out. They're not going to be around much longer. And I don't know where I can point to right now to say, this is the group of people that I belong to. I can point to concepts and ideas, and I know what I stand for, but I don't see large national groups coming forward that I could say, I'm a part of that. The only one that I can is the veteran groups. That's the only one. And even then, when I go to those groups, sometimes I feel a little kind of cast aside because I'm of the younger generations, and a lot of those groups are of the greatest generation, of the Vietnam era, of the early first Gulf War era. And even then, we're getting pushed aside a little bit from people that are my age, and from the Afghan and second Iraq wars. But even still, that's the closest group of people that I can say I know what I stand for with them, and I can talk to anybody in that group, never even know their name. We've got a common bond. I've got a common bond with other conservatives, but outside of veterans groups, it's so hard to find them. I'm so glad that we have Ohio Stands Up, because I know that I can go into a room that's filled with Ohio Stands Up people, and I can have a conversation, and I know that fundamentally a lot of us we're all on the same page. I don't know where else that is. I want a national group of people that I can say I'm a part of that generation. I don't know where it's at. So where are you, men of courage? When are you going to stand up and become the next greatest generation? Thanks for listening.